The question is the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to support this motion, this important motion put forward by my colleague, the member for Dobell, about affordable access to medicines when Australians need them. I want to adopt what my colleague said, the only pharmacist in this place, that access to affordable medicines and healthcare shouldn't be a political stunt. It's above politics because it's about egalitarian access to healthcare. Universal healthcare. It's really one of the great manifestations of one of the most fundamental of Australian values, fairness. It's something that we in this country are rightly proud of, and it's something that we have to hold precious and hold dear and fight to protect. Because the promise of universal healthcare is a promise of an egalitarian society, a society where no matter how much money you have in the bank, how much money you earn, or even if you don't earn any money at all, if you are sick, you know that you will have access to the best medical care, including the best medicines. Because when you're sick, the last thing you need to be worried about is how you're going to be able to afford to go to the doctor, to see the specialist, or to buy the medicine, which in many cases is life-saving. And since 1948, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, proudly introduced by a Labor government, has been one of the most important elements of Australia's universal healthcare system, along with that other great Labor reform, the Medicare system. We know that the aims of the PBS, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, are to ensure timely access to medicines that Australians need at a cost an individual and the community can afford, and also to make sure that medicines meet appropriate standards of quality, safety and efficacy. It is really important that the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme and the work of PBAC, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee, is not politicised, is not used as a weapon against the other side, but they're allowed to go about and do their job. And when PBAC says these medicines should be put on the PBS, then that's what happens. And as the member for Dobell said, if the Health Minister wishes to claim credit for every drug that is put on the PBS, then he has to accept responsibility for the fact that there are 60 drugs which have been recommended by PBAC to put on the PBS which are not there. Drugs that would not only include improve the quality of life for many Australians who need it, but drugs that in many cases will prolong and save Australians' lives. There's also drugs that should be, and the Australian government needs to put on other schemes. One of them is flash glucose constant monitoring. Despite the Shadow Minister for Health tabling a petition of some 214,000 signatures requesting the Minister for Health to list the flash glucose monitor on the NDSS as soon as possible, it is not on the NDSS, which means that people like my constituent of Jackie can't afford to pay for it. Jackie's very lucky that she's been put on a trial with Frankston Hospital of Freestyle Libra. She came in to see me and told me how flash glucose monitoring, constant monitoring, has changed her life as a diabetic, how it's allowed her to be able to undergo daily activities that most of us take for granted and to monitor her health and well-being. And she came to see me and said, "Peta, I'm not just here for myself. In fact, I'm predominantly not here for myself. I'm here for all the other diabetics who are out there whose lives have been a constant battle just to have stability. I want them to have access to whatever they need so that they can be a contributing member of society and they can feel that they're a contributing member of society." So I join those 214,000 Australians and the Shadow Minister for Health and call on Minister Hunt to get flash glucose monitoring on the NDSS as soon as possible. We know that out-of-pocket costs for healthcare have gone up and up. We have Australians living with flat and stagnant wages, with rising household expenses and rising out-of-pocket costs for healthcare, and we know that those who are the most disadvantaged, those who are struggling the hardest to get by, are the ones who are going without when it comes to healthcare. That is not good enough. That is undermining the promise of universal healthcare, and like every other member of the Labor caucus in this federal parliament, I will stand up as often as I can to say we must fight for it and not let it be undermined.
The question is the motion being